Hi everybody, today we're going to start Unit 8. We only have a couple of units to go, so we're getting down there. Unit 8 is all about solving quadratics. Last chapter we talked about all the different parts of quadratics and the parabola that it made. Today we're just going to focus on this unit we're going to focus on the zeros. And your first assignment that was already posted in Google Classroom was basically looking for the zeros graphically. So what that would look like if I were to graph any parabola, you could put it into y equals wherever it crosses the x-axis, your zeros. Let's say it's -2 and 3. Those are your zeros, all right? You can find them graphically, but sometimes you can't find them graphically, or you can only find one. So this whole unit is how to find it algebraically, all right? So before we get into that, though, we're going to just review square roots and irrational numbers. An irrational number, I want you to think about pi. All right, an irrational number basically doesn't end or repeat, and it can't be expressed as a fraction of integers. So if you can write it as a fraction of integers, positive or negative, that's fine, but otherwise, it's irrational. So I want you to think about, again, pi, 3.1415926, it just keeps going, all right? So irrational numbers, again, can't be expressed as a fraction, but also they don't end or repeat. So today we're going to talk about how to find the square root. Some of these numbers are rational, some are irrational, and we'll take a look at that. So just a reminder, if you want to do the square root in your calculator, you're going to hit second x squared and put the number in, or the fraction. And remember, if you want to put a fraction in, it's alpha y equals and enter. All right, it's important to know your fraction or your calculator buttons. So the square root of 25, you probably already know, would be 5. Now, there's actually two answers. It would be 5 and -5, but we'll get into that later in the chapter. Square root of 9, 3 times 3 is 9, so the square root of 9 is 3. But again, if you don't know this, if you hit second, quit, it'll get you to the main screen. So you hit second, and then x squared, you can see that square root button, 9, 3. All right, so go ahead and try the next two. If you need to pause the video, you can. Square root of 100 is not 50, it is 10. All right, square root of 0. Again, if you're not sure, second square root 0, 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 10 times 10 is 100. All right, if it's a fraction, not a big deal. Again, we're going to type in the square root, and we're going to type in the fraction exactly as you see it, alpha y equals enter. So second x squared, alpha y equals, we'll get our fraction, 1 over 4. If you just hit the right arrow button, you can get out of there, or you could have just hit enter. 1/2. All right, because basically what's happening with a fraction, you're taking the square root of the numerator, the square root of the denominator, square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2, 1/2. All right, next one, square root of 64 over 9, again, is the same as the square root of 64 over the square root of 9, 8 over 3. All right, but again, if you aren't sure about that, you could even go up and grab this, hit enter, and then change the values in there. So 64 over 9, enter, 8/3. All right, now square root of 90. Ooh, that's irrational. All right, it ends only because the calculator needs it to end. But it says leave any irrational answers as radicals. So we'll just leave it as 90. And we'll talk next about how to simplify that down. All right, but because we got this decimal, It's irrational. All right. Second square root of 20. 4.47, again, irrational. So we're going to leave it as a square root of 20. And the reason we get this decimal, it's irrational. All right, so pretty easy. Any that you're not sure about, you can use your calculator for. Simplifying radicals is important. Something you'll definitely need in Algebra 2, and actually a little bit in geometry next year. I'm going to go through the steps to do it, but then I'm also going to show you a shortcut in the calculator, which works. Sometimes I find it's faster to just do it by hand, but the calculator will give you the right answer every time. And I'll save that for the next video. So it says find the biggest perfect square factor, so a number that would multiply to give you 50. Break the radical up into 2. The first one would be the perfect square, and the other is the matching factor. So like 50, 25 is a perfect square, 25 times 2. Simplify the square root of the perfect square, all right? And then multiply any numbers that are outside, like this 2 here. All right, so let's take a look at 50. All right, first let's think about our perfect squares. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 6, 7 times 7, 8 times 8, 9 times 9, 10 times 10, 11 times 11, and so on. Those are all perfect squares. So if you can think of a factor, something that can be multiplied to get this, you want to pick that. And you want to pick the largest one. So 25 goes into 50, right? So I'm going to break this up. Instead of writing 50, I'm going to write 25 times 2, because 25 times 2 is 50. Because if you look, if I do the square root of 50, it's irrational, so we need to simplify it. All right, so the square root of 25 we'll put first because that's perfect. Have you ever heard the expression, put your best foot forward? So we'll put the thing that's perfect first. Square root of 25 is just 5. The square root is gone, and then just bring the radical 2 down. And if you put that into your calculator, 5 square root of 2, you get the same thing. All right, it's just been simplified. So anytime this chapter where it's not a perfect square, where you don't get a nice number like square root of 9, you're going to want to simplify. All right, so 300. Like 25 goes into 300, but see if there's something bigger. 100. 100 goes into 300, right? So I'm going to just do 100 times 3. And then don't forget about that 2. We'll just bring him along for the ride for now. The square root of 100 is 10. So I have 10 radical 3. All right, and then it says multiply any numbers outside, so bring this 2 down. 2 times 10 is 20 radical 3. All right, and that's simplifying radicals. In the next video, I'll show you how you can get that same thing using your calculator. So if you're not sure, maybe it's a number you don't recognize, maybe you can't find the square root, your calculator will find it and simplify it for you. All right, so that's lesson 1. Watch for lesson 2 and the practice. Have a great day.